So, Pope Francis recently passed away from an illness. He was buried within a few days, as is the belief in the Catholic faith, with some of things that were witnessed in the burial raising more questions than answers. Anyway, and it was time to select a new pope. The process of selecting a new pope kicked off, and within a few days, we had a new pope. So, how exactly do you become a pope? How do you get to lead over 1 billion people, worldwide to be specific, because otherwise you could choose to lead the Chinese or the Indians, who are also roughly as much. Crazy numbers, by the way. Well, here's a step-by-step guide of all that you need to become a pope and get to lead Catholic faithfuls all over the world. The first step is, you need to be a man, because yes, only men can become popes. Second, you need to be a Catholic, that is, baptized within the Catholic Church. Theoretically, any Catholic male can become a pope, but obviously, there's so much more required to become a pope, and the whole thing is an entire inside job. Selecting a pope is done by a special class of people within the Catholic Church clergy called the Cardinals, the people always rocking red, in a meeting called the conclave. This group often chooses one of their own who they promote to become a pope. Even though it is not a requirement for you to be a cardinal to become the pope, upwards of 98% of popes that have ever lived were cardinals first. Get this, the last time a non-cardinal became the pope was Pope Urban VI in 1378, even though he was an archbishop, which again is not something you just become. With this information comes a third requirement for becoming the pope. First, be a man. Second, be a member of the Catholic Church. Third, be a cardinal, or at least a high-ranking member of the clergy within the Catholic Church. Now, let's go step by step. If you are a Catholic male, but not a cardinal or some high-ranking official, then you start out by being a priest. Being a priest requires some level of relevant education, like a degree in Catholicism or Catholic philosophy, and a master's in divinity, often completed in special schools, popularly known as seminaries. Before all that, you have to be unmarried and willing to remain celibate for the rest of your life. Once you satisfy all these, get in touch with your local church that should help you with ministering, and after a few years of training, kind of like an apprenticeship of some sorts, then you can be ordained as a priest. Being a priest means that you're qualified enough to run your own Catholic church or continue collaborating with another priest who does. Catholic churches are funded by donations and charities, mostly in the form of offerings. Once you're a priest, you can move a level higher and become a bishop, which is a more prestigious position. There are roughly 400,000 priests around the world, but there are roughly 5,000 bishops, showing you that it isn't an easy thing to become one. For a bishop, instead of running a church, you're running a cathedral, which is basically a bigger church that oversees smaller churches within a locality. The cathedral basically leads the diocese, which is a group of Catholic churches in a given region. For you to become a bishop, a position has to open up. And how does a position open up? Well, the current bishop either passes away or retires at the age of 75 as stipulated under the Code of Canon Law. Remaining bishops in a country consult a list of potential bishops that is updated every 3 years. The updates are based on thoughts of which priest in the country or region would make a good candidate. The provisional requirements to make the potential bishops list include at least be a good person, be over 35 years of age, have served as a priest for at least 5 years, and be a doctor of theology or have a PhD in theology, which is the study of the nature of God. The list is often given to the Pope's ambassador in the country, also called the Apostolic Nuncio, who picks 3 names from the list, does a bit of research on them, conducts a series of interviews, sends his findings to the Vatican, where the Congress of Bishops either approves the nuncio's selection or tells him to keep looking. Once the Congress of Bishops is satisfied with the nuncio's selection, then the candidate is given to the sitting pope who can veto it and basically restart the entire process, which can take a very long time. If the pope approves the selection, guess who the newest pope in town is? There are archbishops who rank higher than bishops, with more responsibilities. For archbishops, instead of running a cathedral that oversees a diocese, they oversee an archdiocese, which is a larger area, often centered around metropolitan areas or a collection of smaller dioceses. The process of becoming an archbishop is pretty much the same one as becoming a bishop. Wait for the current one to retire or die, get on the special list, then get selected. And yeah, that's pretty much it. While it doesn't seem to be as different, being an archbishop is more prestigious than being a regular bishop because there's like 600 of them compared to like 5,000 bishops. Once you're a bishop, then now the next step is becoming a cardinal.
Cardinals are the princes of the church, an honor that only the Pope himself can convey upon them. The term cardinal derives from the Latin word for hinge, used as a metaphor to symbolize that they are the ones the church revolves on. The common traits among all these men include intelligence, coherence, mercy, and prudence at decision-making. They are created during a special ceremony called a consistory. The last one took place on November 2012, where Benedict XVI created 6 new cardinals. In all, there are currently 207. Their main function is to advise the Pope, hence why many of them preside over the most important departments of the Roman Curia, or the largest diocese of the world. But their most important function is to elect the new Pope during the sede vacante period. The College of Cardinals is broken down into 3 orders. The cardinal bishops hold the highest rank. The Eastern Patriarchs are among this group. The leader among them is a cardinal dean, who is considered the primus inter pares, first among equals. That was the honor Joseph Ratzinger had before being elected pope.
For the record, you don't have to be an archbishop to become a cardinal, but it surely does help in the long run. Despite the aesthetics, cardinals are not bishops' bosses because they're also just bishops, with the added responsibility of obviously electing the next pope, among other things. Plus, there's like 250 cardinals all over the world. To become a cardinal, you just have to be appointed by the sitting pope. There are no rules exclusively written to become a cardinal. You just have to be a great bishop. Being an archbishop comes with an added advantage. Dedicate your life to God and to the ministry, and get the Pope to notice that you're putting in the work. Once you're promoted to cardinal, then you're one step away from being the Pope. Now you have to wait for the sitting Pope to either die or resign, with only 3% of popes, 6 of them, having ever resigned, the most recent being Pope Benedict XVI in 2013. It is reported that Pope Francis appointed 81% of the current cardinals, effectively controlling the choice of his successor. Once a pope dies or resigns, all the cardinals below the age of 80 assemble at the Vatican to start the next pope election process, popularly known as the conclave. They get together, isolated from the rest of the world, all communication, including cell phones, restricted, and follow a set of instructions left by the departed pope on how to select the successor. The process includes the cardinals heading to the Sistine Chapel 4 times a day to vote one among them to become pope. For a pope to be chosen, they have to win 2/3 of the conclave vote. To vote, the cardinals write the name of their preferred candidate on a piece of paper, say a long prayer in front of the altar, in Latin, cast the ballot, and repeat over and over. The votes cast are counted and burned. If the winner was not found after a round of votes, black smoke comes out of the Sistine Chapel chimney, indicating that a pope has not been selected, and the whole process starts all over again. Once the smoke comes out white, then a new pope has been chosen. The whole process of selecting a new pope can be time-consuming, sometimes taking months or years, with the longest conclave in history being the one convened to select Pope Gregory X in 1271 that lasted 3 years. The process has been far shorter in recent years, often taking 2 to 3 days, with it being 2 centuries before a conclave lasted more than a week. The name chosen in the 2/3 vote becomes the Pope, the next step being choosing the papal name, which becomes the new name they're referred to with for the rest of their lives. The name can be any name, but it is often the case that the Pope takes a previous Pope's name or the name of a saint. The Pope who just passed away, Pope Francis I, was actually called Jorge Mario Bergoglio. So after spending your entire life to become a pope, guess what? You don't get a salary. Instead, all your living expenses are covered by the Vatican through the Church's funding throughout your entire life. However, a traditional sort of payment is given to the Pope, but only once he departs. The direct payment a Pope receives is 3 bags of gold, silver, and copper coins, each bag containing a coin for every year they reigned as Pope, and is placed in their coffin. And there you have it. If you want to be a Pope, that's basically all you need to know and do. Taking you back to the start of the video a bit, we started with pointing out that the first requirement to be a Pope is to be a Catholic male. Well, what if you're a Catholic female? What happens then? Well, there's this mythology involving Pope Joan, some calling her John Anglicus, a woman who disguised herself as a man and rose to become the Pope in the Middle Ages, between 855 to 857, placing her between Pope Leo IV and Pope Benedict III. It is alleged that her identity was revealed after she gave birth during a procession in Rome. Following the discovery, it is alleged that the Church instituted tests to ascertain that no female pope could rise to papacy. Some of the measures included the papal chair that had a hole in the middle to check the pope's masculinity. While historical records for the existence of Pope Joan are lacking, the whole thing raises questions on the role of women in the Catholic Church. Despite being discredited historically, Pope Joan has remained a popular subject in literature, film, and feminist discussions. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding the role of women in the Church, in this case, the Catholic Church. The Church has constantly encouraged men and women into different paths, these paths often being perceived as being segregated into leadership and caregiving. Men have constantly led the Catholic Church through positions such as deacons, priests, bishops, cardinals, and popes. Women, on the other hand, have assumed roles such as abbesses, nuns, sisters, educators, and in other roles on a community level and within convents and monasteries.